Not as good as last week.
No. We probably need to explain why you clap.
Go for it.
Well, you got to match up the video with the audio. That's why Nathan is clapping every week.
And I just am clapping in anticipation of how good our time together will be. So instead of clapping after, I clap before.
Right. But it's not just like we start each time of like Nathan practicing his clapping and we talk about how good it was. Like,
What's really funny
it's more purposeful than that.
Stetson, when he preaches and does his filming, he gets it wrong.
I always clap at the wrong time.
Of the time.
Ugh.
He'll clap, and then Kevin, who films it, goes, I'm not recording yet.
Too early.
So
I'm
good.
not recording yet.
Well, having said all that, guys, welcome back to Student Night House Parties here down at Zoe. Special welcome to everybody who's joining us online. We're thrilled you guys are with us. We got a fun night in store, so let's go ahead and kick it off.
Slices.
And, by the way, if you're new and haven't been around Slices, it's really us just taking slices of random things happening in culture that we think are funny, weird, random, or strange. I'm just trying to imagine somebody who wasn't here the first week we explained that. They're like, slices? Why do they
What
keep
is
saying
slices? Yeah. If you know of anything that's happened in the world that you want us to talk about, tell us. Should I go first?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever been on a blind date before?
I have not.
Okay. I read about this blind... No. I read about this...
You dated a blind girl?
No. But if I wasn't married, I wouldn't be opposed to it. Just establishing that.
Didn't the deaf girl get kicked off The Bachelor?
I haven't watched it yet. Don't tell me.
Dude, it was a headline news article.
She was one of my favorites. Ugh, so disappointed.
I thought you were so obsessed with this show.
I am, but it doesn't come on Hulu until the next day.
Okay, but that was yesterday.
I know it was aired yesterday, and it comes on Hulu today. Yeah, it airs on Monday, which was yesterday. Today is Tuesday.
And you guys are watching this on Wednesday.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry. It was on the news. It was a headline.
No! I don't even remember what her name was. I thought she was awesome. Okay. Anyway.
Blind dates.
Moving on. If you watch The Bachelor or Bachelorette, high five through the video.
I don't.
There was a man and a woman who were going on a blind date in China, and they both lived in China. It's not like, hey, let's go on a blind date. Let's go to China. Like they were already in China. And he offered to pay for dinner, and they set a time and a place. When he showed up, she had invited 23 members of her extended family onto the date with him. It was a $4,000 bill.
Why?
He basically had this intense interview with her entire extended family.
To go on a blind date with her?
Yeah, he showed up, and it was like a family reunion. And I'm sure they were asking like all these questions and stuff and seeing if he was a good fit.
Did she expect to like marry this guy?
I don't know. Like,
is there any follow-up? Was there a second date?
I have no idea. She probably scared him off. Wow. But I know like Asian culture is like very different than ours, so maybe this is like a normal thing. I don't know.
What restaurant are you allowed to seat 25 people at?
I don't know. Chinese restaurant? It's China? This is a good question. Is every restaurant in China a Chinese restaurant?
Yes and no.
I say yes.
I know, but they serve other kinds of food. So it's a Chinese restaurant in the sense that it's Chinese owned and operated, but they might serve hamburgers.
Okay, I need everyone's opinion on this. If you think every restaurant in China is a Chinese restaurant, raise your hand. And if you think every restaurant in China does not qualify as a Chinese restaurant, raise your hand.
What about restaurants like in Hong Kong that are ran by international companies that are maybe US based?
Hong Kong's too complicated.
But it's a part of China.
Okay, we're getting into a political sphere here that most of the people that we're with are not aware of.
In China. So if Hong Kong is a part of China, those restaurants would technically be.
I don't know.
All right. Anyways, so have you guys ever Googled the Florida Man? Have you?
Yes.
Okay.
Incredible.
So if you ever get a chance, Google Florida Man. There are some amazing stories out there. Well, there was this one guy. He's a 22-year-old guy. Mm-hmm. 4 a.m. he begins calling the cops. I don't know why. Apparently, he needed a ride home. And so he thought, hey, I'm going to call the cops. They're going to give me a ride home. They say, dude, no, get a cab. So he calls him again. Same answer. He calls him a third time. And while he's on the phone with them, the cops show up and they're like, dude, we're going to arrest this guy. So here's why I bring up the whole Florida man thing. There's like a total cliche about these people who, like, they just do the most ridiculous, stupid things, and typically it ends up in like death. But this guy, like, kind of views himself as being a Florida man. I'm gonna show you guys this picture. He tattooed an outline of the state of Florida on his head because, I don't know, like, he wanted to be associated with Florida man.
So good.
I know there's no value to this story. I just thought, like, the picture was incredibly weird. Like, check this out.
Yeah. That's so low.
It's like a unibrow.
Are you gonna like show it on the
Yeah,
screen?
it's on
Oh
the
my
screen right
gosh,
now.
it is so low.
But, like, what do you do if you're a cop in Florida? You've got this guy, and you're like, all right, maybe he's drunk. I don't know. His car broke down. And then you see his face. You're like, oh.
It's so great when he's
This
frowning
makes
too.
Anyways,
That
that's
was a
my
good one.
slice.
That was really good.
Nothing weird. It's just silly, fun stuff.
Yep.
Well, we are going to transition, and yes, I'm saying that. That's what people do when they move from one subject
Into our
to another.
time of conversation.
But we've been in a series for the last 4 weeks. Today is week 5, called The Ten Commandments, where we are talking about.
The 10 Commandments.
That's right. And this has been kind of a. Don't judge me for the drums. This has been a pretty fun series for me, for a lot of different reasons. But I think one of them is that, you know, a lot of times as Christians, we kind of have this aversion to rules. We don't want to talk about it. We want to talk about grace and about Jesus. And I love grace. I love Jesus. But one of the things that you see when you read the Gospels is that, like, Jesus actually had, like, this reverence for the 10 Commandments and for living them out.
Yep.
But it was a lot different than the way other people saw them, right? Because some people tend to be incredibly legalistic about them.
Right.
And Jesus actually went beyond that, and he actually rejected a lot of the legalism of the 10 Commandments and said, no, I want to help you understand what the heart and the spirit behind these things really is. And so if Jesus loved these, man, I think it's important that we love these as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we knocked out 4. We're going to be on our 5th one today. So Stetson, why don't you go ahead and read us the passage?
Okay, this is in Exodus chapter 20, verse 12. And it goes like this. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long in the land that the Lord your God is giving you.
Not exactly a popular one.
Yeah, no kidding.
You know, in our culture, I was thinking about this as I was kind of getting ready for today. I think this is probably the one that most people who are younger probably struggle with. You know, when I was younger, I know I just said that, but, like, I used to watch a TV show called The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Did you ever watch that?
Absolutely.
Fantastic show. Maybe you guys can find it. They're actually making a remake of it.
Oh, no.
No, dude. I saw the trailer. It looks amazing. And the
Okay.
whole original cast is, like, a part of being the executive producers. Whatever.
Okay, I'll
But
keep an open mind.
Will Smith was the star of that show, and before he was an actor, he was actually a rapper. He was the Fresh Prince, and then he had DJ Jazzy Jeff. But he became famous for writing this song called Parents Just Don't Understand. It came out in 1988. That, to me, right there, right? Parents just don't understand. I think that's probably a pretty good summary of the way most young people think about their parents.
Yeah.
Not all, if you're here and that's not you, like, congratulations. But I would say at large, there's kind of been this rejection of older people, specifically of parents, because we think they're out of touch. We think they don't understand the way things are. We think that they're judgmental. We think that they're oppressive, right? We've got this whole list of things. And I think that that's actually rooted in our culture. You see, our culture, it's kind of taken old people and pushed them to the side. And we've actually even seen that a lot, like in recent elections, with some of the things that have been said about older politicians. But we're in this world where it's like we want to get rid of the old and bring in the new. And so instead of, like, revering old people and respecting and honoring them, we actually kind of reject and hate them. And instead we worship young people. So when you look at, like, the top influencers on Instagram and on YouTube, they're all younger people, right? Like, and that's why people go and get so much plastic surgery so that they could look younger. Like, we have this idolization of youth. But in this ancient culture that these 10 Commandments were written to, it was like the exact opposite. Old people were not hated. They were not pushed to the side. They were actually honored above all else. They were celebrated above all else, right? In this culture, a father and a mother, they were the most important people in the family unit. we've got to understand that as we come to this command. And I think that's important too, because like this command for any Israelite hearing it at this time would have been like, oh yeah, of course I need to honor my father and mother. But for us, when we come to it, kind of feels a little bit different. It's a little bit harder. It's a little more foreign.
Yeah. Even just like the phrase of like honor your father and mother. It's like, what? Like, what does that even mean? And I think a good step for all of us is trying to think about everything that they've done for us. Like you and I, we have pretty young kids.
Yep.
And through raising young kids, mine are 4 and 2 years old, I'm learning just how much my parents did for me. Like my kids are useless. Like they serve no purpose.
Mine can scratch my back.
That's great. See, because they're older than mine. Like my oldest is 4. Like they have never paid rent. They don't clean up after themselves. They don't bathe themselves. My son just learned to like put his pants on by himself.
Congratulations,
Yeah.
Edison.
But sometimes he puts on 2 pairs of pants. He calls it pants on pants. And he's like, pants on pants. It's like, oh, okay, but we need to go. They serve no purpose. And yet, my wife and I, we do everything that we can to care for them. And that's what all of our parents, well, hopefully all of our parents did for us. At least for me, like thinking about how much I'm doing for my kids, it's causing me to realize how much my parents did for me.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's just a part of the reality. I think when we were younger, like I even think back when I was a kid, like I had no idea what my aunt and uncle who raised me were doing for me. Right. And I think a part of that just honestly had to do with the fact that like when you're younger, it's kind of hard to see other people outside of yourself.
Yeah. And that's fair.
Yeah. It's totally, I mean, developmentally, like it totally makes sense why that is. But like I was so stuck in my world with what I wanted. Like I didn't understand the sacrifices that other people were making for me.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's really similar to the way like we've kind of even framed up this whole 10 Commandments conversation, right? Like God is our Father, we are his children. God has asked us to live in a certain way. And sometimes that way seems like totally contradictory to the way that we want to live and to some of the things that we want to do. But what God knows is what we don't know. And that is this, is that when we do the things he's called us to do, we're actually going to be able to experience a more full, joy-filled life than if we just ran off and did our own thing.
Yeah.
And so a part of some of that struggle and tension in the parent-child relationship, it's just, honestly, it's rooted in a lack of knowledge and ignorance.
Yeah. This is actually the only command where God follows it by saying you actually get something in return for doing this, which is really interesting. I think there's stuff to unpack there. But and as much as the Bible talks about how children should treat their parents, I'm no expert on this, but I would guess just as much, if not more, the Bible talks about how parents should treat their children.
Oh, it talks way more about that.
Yeah. And the reality is parents are meant to be a gift for their children, but that is not always the case. Some of you have pretty terrible parents, and that's pretty sad. Like, that makes the two of us pretty sad. I don't think we go as far as to say that they're terrible people. They just might not be very good parents. And that's not fair. And that's not right. But before we go any farther in talking about how to honor parents who aren't necessarily treating us the best of ways, it's really important that you understand that we are not saying that God wants you to stay in an abusive household. If you are being physically or emotionally abused, that's not okay. God is not okay with that. It is not honoring your parents to just take that over and over and over and over. If you feel like you're in that situation, Nathan and I, we are really safe people to talk to who can help you get help. Okay, I know that was really heavy, but let's take a step back from that a little bit. Let's talk about parents. Our parents are human beings. They make mistakes. They're not always there for us in the ways that they should.
Contrary to what you might believe, like when we have kids, there's no user's manual that comes with it, right?
Yeah.
Like we honestly have no idea what we're doing as parents, and the same is true for your parents. And you know, the beauty is that as life goes on, and kids get older and we get more experience. We figure some of that stuff out. But just like you, parents are human, and so I think one of the things to keep in the back of your mind is like it's just this idea of grace, right? The same kind of grace that God has offered you through His Son Jesus. Find a way to offer that to your parents when they're not living up to your expectations. Because I can almost guarantee you that your parents, 9 times out of 10, whatever it is that they've done that's frustrated you, it's not something they're doing to try to hurt you. It's not something they're intentionally doing to try to inflict pain upon you.
Yeah.
Like, they love you. You're their child. Like, I don't care how mad my kids make me. Like, I still don't want to see them suffer.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think one of the ways that we can honor our parents is remembering that they are a person with their own life and their own story. Like, you might see that person as dad or mom, but they actually have their own life and their own experiences. And there might be things going on in their life that you just aren't aware of. Maybe that's good, maybe that's not. But like, for example, like if your mom or dad is feeling really anxious or kind of like snippety or short with you, they could have just had like a terrible day. It doesn't make it right to treat other people that way. Like, I spoke poorly to someone because of things that I was feeling just the other day, and I had to call and apologize for that. But there are things going on in their lives that you might not be aware of. You might be hurt by how little your parent is around, but they might be holding up a couple jobs just to put food on the table. Yeah. And for, like you said, like 9 out of 10 parents, they're doing the best that they can. And maybe that's not enough sometimes, but I think one of the best ways that we can honor our father and mother is to forgive them.
Yeah.
And it feels like that we shouldn't have to, because they're our parents, and we know intrinsically it's like they're the ones that are supposed to be like taking care of me, and that's true. But we're not going to do it perfectly all the time.
Yeah.
And they need your forgiveness. That is like a really powerful thing that you can do for your parents.
And another thing too is words of affirmation and encouragement. My oldest daughter, Ryan, she is a 4th grader right now. And her teacher sent my wife, and then my wife sent it to me, this story that Ryan wrote about me for a project she did at school. And like, I read this thing and like, I was on the verge of tears because it was so heartfelt and it was just celebrating me. And like half the stuff she wrote, I'm like, oh baby, if you only knew the real story. But like, my daughter's encouragement and her words, they brought life to me.
Yeah.
And you guys have that ability with your parents. My wife and I, in our relationship, pretty early on, we established kind of this rule for how we were going to operate in conflict. And that was is that we're going to give each other the benefit of the doubt, that we're not going to assume the worst about them, but instead the best about them. And so if you guys can begin doing this with your parents, like assume the best about them, and then speak that best thing into life. Be like, Mom, like, I love the way you care for me. Dad, I love the way you work so hard to provide for us.
Yeah.
Even though I know you got that cut at work, you still made sure that I got to do all the fun things that I wanted to do. Those words literally speak and bring life into the heart of your parents.
Yeah, absolutely. That's huge.
Absolutely.
So, Nathan, I've been really inspired by your story. You have lived this out in ways that most people won't get to experience, which is partly a good thing, partly like they're missing out on things that you've gotten to experience.
Yeah. So, this particular command for like the longest time in my life had probably been the hardest one for me to live out. Like, I remember probably about 10, 12 years ago, I was telling a pastor I worked for at the time just kind of my story, and he's like, hey man, you need to really rethink how you talk about your relationship with your dad. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, you're not very honoring to him. I'm like, dude, I haven't seen the guy in like 15 years. Like, he just straight up walked out of our life. He's like, yeah, but you're still commanded to honor your father and mother.
Crazy.
And I was like super, like kind of annoyed that he told me that, but I started thinking about it. And then, obviously God did a whole lot of work in my heart, and I actually, it was about a year ago, I began to seek out my father, who had abandoned my family when I was, 5, 6 years old, something like that. And then I found him. And I'll never forget the first thing my dad had said to me. He said, I've been dreading this day for half my life. Because he was afraid that I was going to curse him, that I was going to yell at him, that I was going to be angry at him, that I was just literally going to step into his life, show him everything he could have had, and then strip it away from him so he's even more alone than he was. But that's not what I did. I chose to extend grace to my father. I chose to extend love. I chose to extend honor. And man, Stetson, it's beautiful. Like, my father is now a part of my life again. This last summer, he came out, he met my wife, he met my kids, like every birthday, every holiday. Like, my kids just got Valentine's cards from him. They want to call him all the time. They create cards for him. And I was thinking about it. My dad got a new shot at life and at knowing his family and an ability to experience all of these things he missed because I chose to honor my father. Like, guys, when we choose to do this, it literally has the power and the ability not only to change us, but to change our parents.
Yep.
And man, that's true for you as well, right? You could have a parent who is a terrible parent. Don't respond by being terrible back. Choose love.
Yep.
Choose grace. Choose compassion. Speak the things that you want to be true about them into their life, because odds are it's going to begin to change them.
Yeah. Dude, your story about your dad blows me away. That's incredible.
Like, I never, like, years ago, I never thought this would happen.
Yeah.
But this is just what the Lord did in my heart. This is where he led us. And I have seen the fruit of this commandment, right? Like
yeah.
That second part, and it will go well for you all of your days.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here going like, oh my gosh, my kids are now benefiting because I took this command seriously. Like, they have another grandparent who loves them, who is there for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And you learn like parts of his story too that you were unaware of that really changed your perspective.
Shifted it big time.
That's so cool. Guys, like, you are one of the most influential people in your parents' lives.
Not one of, they are the most influential person in your parents' life.
Yeah. Like, that's powerful. Like, you have this influence over your parents' lives. Seriously. Like,
it can be for good or for bad.
Absolutely.
And
for sure.
Too many people, when they don't take this command seriously, it ends up being bad. I've seen so many kids, as have you, who have rejected their parents, who have not honored their parents, and it's destroyed them. It's broken their hearts. But the kids who have chosen to love, to build up, to honor, man, it's strengthened everybody involved.
Yeah. And one of the big things about your story is it shows like it's never too late to turn that around.
Nope.
Like, it was like 15 years, right?
Yeah.
No, more than that.
No, yeah. Like, we're talking like 25 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And after 25 years, it just did a 180. That's insane. All right.
You want to give them the big idea?
Yes. Let me look up how you phrased it. The big idea: treat your parents better than you want them to treat you.
Which is kind of similar to something that Jesus said, right? Doing to others as you want them to do unto you. We're going to go one step further here. Treat them better than you want them to treat you.
Yeah.
And so we're going to send you off to house parties now. In this time, obviously, talk about this, process this, talk about your relationship with your parents. But more than that, I would love for us to be able to get incredibly practical about ways we can begin to honor our parents this week. And it's not that you need to go home and be like, hey, Mom, Dad, I'm going to start honoring you now. It's like, okay, whatever. But like, just show up in an unexpected way and love them.
Yep. All right, guys.
House parties, time to break out.